On today's show, Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun dominate against the San Antonio Spurs in the Houston Rockets' final preseason game, and we got a great look at the rotations and lineups heading into the regular season. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube, where the best way that you can help our show out is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. And while you're there, drop us a comment, give us your thoughts on the game, or just swing by and say, "Go Rockets." It helps a ton. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. Joining us now to break down the Houston Rockets' final preseason game against the San Antonio Spurs is none other than your weekly co-host, NBA draft enthusiast, and diehard Houston Rockets fan, Madison Moore. You can track down on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. Rockets beating the Spurs 129-107. Now, the disclaimer at the top: this was not the full-strength San Antonio Spurs. This was arguably like a version of, like, I don't know, the Austin Spurs with like Harrison Barnes basically playing babysitter out there for a good chunk of the game. Like, this is very right out of the Greg Popovich playbook. Rest all the guys in the final preseason game, not taking it super seriously. We're going to get into a little bit later on in the episode talking about some of the early defensive woes of this Rockets team. They did give up 31 points in the opening quarter of this game and then another 32 in the third quarter of this game. We want to try and take a look at that. Maybe there's some defensive concerns there. Maybe it's just preseason laziness, but we're going to save that for a little bit later on in the episode. What we want to start with here are the two big names, the two leading stories, I think, and that's Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun, who both looked like they had dominant performances in this game. Jalen Green, 30 points on 8 of 16, 7 of 13 from downtown. Shout out to Jalen for hitting the 7-1-3 mark on his three-point percentage there. And then Alperen Sengun, 21 and 10 on 9 of 12 shooting. Just a pair of really fantastic games for both of these guys, Madison, to kind of close out the preseason heading into the regular season next week.
Yeah, I thought both of them played really good tonight. Amazing. They played within the flow of the offense. I thought neither one of them really dominated the ball. They really played within the system, and the system is what has been really interesting to see. How are we going to feed all these mouths? And what we're starting to learn about this, and which we know, is if the guys move the ball, then everybody will get involved. And that's what we've seen from Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green. Jalen Green really got going. He just was on a heater from three, but he really got going on catch and shoot threes, something that, we really wanted to see from Jalen early in the season last year, when he was getting those opportunities as an off-ball scorer. And it seems like Jalen has worked on, just the fundamentals,
he's
simplifying his game.
Off ball. Like it's actually kind of crazy that they've basically gone from, they're basically to the point where, hey, Jalen is going to get a lot of his reps off ball, or he's going to get a quick catch and then immediately get into whatever action he wants to, whether it's a quick screen, whether it's getting downhill off the catch, things like that. And he's just getting straight into his offense. But there's also a level of, and shout out to, I guess, Coach Dash from this past offseason, right? There's a level of like poise and control in his game that didn't really appear to be there in seasons prior, right? Especially on those catch and shoot opportunities, especially even on those, opportunities where he generates like a step back three or whatever. He seems more on balance. It seems like he's taking that extra half second, quarter second, whatever, to steady himself, to get his base under him. And it's led to a way more consistent outside shot. He's shooting over 40% from three in the preseason.
Yeah. I seen it was 47, like almost 45. It was 45% in the preseason from three from Jalen, which is absolutely amazing. But like you said, it's how he's getting to these threes. Most of them are catch and shoot threes with step back sprinkled in. And it's just the simplification of his offense. I think that's the most important, picking his spots, way less dribbles from Jalen Green this year. He really is getting in and out of the actions very quickly and making quick decisions. And he's trusting his teammates to really find each other and let the ball come back to him and get an open three. I think this is the approach on how you get easy buckets and get yourself into rhythm. So now you're available to take those step backs in the third and fourth quarters because you're really feeling it now. You really gotten yourself in the rhythm. And it was a thing, Jalen went on the Paul George podcast like a year or two ago, and they were talking about, oh, do you want the first shot when it comes in, or do you like the game to come to you? And Jalen was like, oh, no, give me the first shot. And it was just like, and Paul was like, nah, man, I like to get into the rhythm of the game, getting warm. And that's what I'm seeing from Jalen now. He's not taking 8 shots in the first quarter, right? He's taking 3 and 4 shots now. Good shots on good efficiency. There's no bad shots in his shot profile anymore. Like they're completely gone. And I think we're seeing the benefits of that. And we're hoping this is something he can build on and sustain throughout the year.
The exact number, should have had it pulled up. I'm a bad host. I'm so sorry. 43.2% on 9.3 attempts per game across the preseason. That's pretty good. Now, I don't know if that's sustainable. I would be content with Jalen just hovering around league average or better. I mean, so, hats off to him for the work that he put in this offseason. And then also the ability for him this game, right? He was, kind of letting things come to him, but he also did a really good job of forcing the issue, driving, getting downhill. Yep. He only had 1 shot attempt at the rim, outside of just all the other shots that he attempted from the perimeter. But then he also had a ton of opportunities where he got fouled on his way to the cup, right? Got to the free throw line 8 times, or I apologize. Yeah, 8 times, hit 7 of them. So that's a really kind of good, diversified little offensive profile for Jalen Green, right? That's what you want out of your star level player is, obviously he had the 3 ball going, but he wasn't just relying on the 3 ball in this game. And that's what stood out a lot about his play. Now, on the other end of things, Alperen Sengun, dude's still a wizard. I mean, 21 and 10, 9 of 12 from the floor. We saw him bust out the little Harden rip through move a few times in this game. He did get to the free throw line 7 times, only hit 3 of them, man. I was so excited about the Alperen Sengun free throw breakthrough. And I'm going to have to give a quick shout out to Adam Spillane of 610 Radio for asking Ime about Sengun's free throw shooting and his percentage and all this. And the moment he asked about it, I was like, man, here comes all the misses. Like, here it is. You had to jinx it. You had to say it. He was, same thing as throwing a no-hitter. You don't say it, man. Come on.
Alperen struggled at the line tonight, but it's very clear that the foul magnet that Alp is, he looks like a vet out there. Like the way Joel Embiid really just baits guys and getting them in trouble. He's pulling out even more tricks and craft to really get guys in foul trouble, which I think is huge for the Rockets, because when Alp is getting big men in foul trouble, then those guys are off the floor and there's no one to protect the paint, and the rest of the guys get involved in the offense. But more importantly, the biggest improvement I see from Sengun is his strength. Do you know how many and-ones he had tonight? Where he's just
plowing through guys.
Yes, he's plowing through guys, moving through guys. He had so many and-ones where he got the foul and finished at the basket.
Tougher bucket. The one where he drove kind of left base, like straight line drive, and then he held back, and it was so awkward, right? Like he flexed backwards and still flipped the ball. Like that basket, or the baseline drive where he then went up and under straight. Like which one? Tougher bucket.
I think the tougher bucket was probably the baseline up and under, but the one I liked the most was that finger roll, that reverse hand, same side of the goal, finger roll through the guy's body. Yeah. And it was just like, he drew so much contact. He knew he was going to get the foul and decided to put this crazy English on the ball that really just, it's the type of touch only Alp and the greats have. And you can really just see Alp just every time he gets the ball down there, he's going to be a problem. He's going to be an issue. And I also like to see that he was very active on the boards. 10 boards tonight in under 30 minutes. That's the type of production we want to see out of Alp. And he also in the middle of the defense, making plays for his teammates, getting a lot of hockey assists. And I just want to praise the Rockets passing tonight. I really thought their perimeter passing was really good. They played inside out, and everybody got to touch the ball and everybody got to eat tonight, with our best players in Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun leading the way with the strongest performance.
Doing the heavy lifting from the two big guns doing the heavy lifting. That was two of my things kind of coming into this game. The little kind of like Spurs preview that we did on the last episode. Wanted to see Jalen Green have a big, strong kind of, I don't want to call it a breakout performance, but a big, strong game. Final game of preseason, he did that. Alp, strong on the glass, a 21-10 game. You love that out of him. I will say my one gripe with either of them is for Sengun. He had the 4 turnovers. The Rockets did have, as a team, 17 turnovers in this game. Not the end of the world. Again, you're playing against the Austin Spurs. They had those early turnovers in the first quarter. That's one area I'd like to see them clean up a little bit, right? And I'm sure Ime is going to be harping on him about that. But if we check with our resident correspondent, Uncle Jeff Green, about how Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun looked in this game. Hey, Jeff, how'd they do?
Go ahead. Reed, how did you feel about your
Oh, that's not the right one. Oh, no, hang on, that's not the right one. No, this is the right one. Jeff, how'd they do?
He did great.
Oh, man, I played the wrong clip. You know what? Whatever. It still sort of worked.
He did great.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sorry.
God, I love that clip. I'm going to be using it all season long. Coming up, we're going to take a look at the Houston Rockets rotations and the lineups that we saw on display in this game. This was their true dress rehearsal ahead of the regular season. The first time that we've seen all 10 guys in effect that project to be part of the regular season rotation. We'll unpack what we saw there, as well as getting into some of the potentially, concerning defensive trends from this team. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Hims. Look, your sex life is important, but your schedule is pretty busy sometimes, right? Maybe you don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your very own couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Okay, Madison, so this game, the final preseason game, Ime treated it. He said as much that he was going to treat it as the true kind of dress rehearsal going into the season. And we saw what kind of projects to be the general rotation, substitution patterns. Now, some of this, I say this with the caveat that some of this might be a little bit limited in scope, because Ime did mention that both Tari Eason and Steven Adams would still be playing about like those kind of like little 5-minute stints of run, right? And so that might kind of bleed into what Ime would ideally like to be doing with some of the rotations, because you saw some weirder substitutions, right? Like Alp was, out for, the end of the second quarter and didn't get back in until like 2 minutes left in the half or whatever. You saw some weird stretches in there, but we also saw some pretty interesting lineups. And the best lineup that the Rockets actually put out in this game was actually the lineup featuring Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Tari Eason, Amin Thompson, Steven Adams. That lineup finished the game a plus 14 in 3 minutes and 50 seconds of run together, and they looked damn good when they were out there. At one point, that lineup held the Spurs absolutely scoreless to go up. They went on a 17-0 run to go up 58-39. So the score was 41-39. Then they went on a 17-0 run there, kind of midway through the second quarter, all the way up until when Sengun subbed back in.
Yeah, I think that was basically Tari and Amin really terrorizing guys. Like they were really terrorizing, being disruptive. And I think Amin in particular was very, very aggressive in the fast break and getting to the basket. And I thought Tari was Tari looked like the old Tari. Like, he looked like himself. He was very active. I thought he snuck up on and got a lot of different steals and really just he was just sneaking up on guys and taking the ball from them.
Dude, there was the one where he was in the backcourt and he I forget which Spurs player, he barely caught the ball turn and it's Castle and he had Tari like in his mug, like, and it wound up being a foul, but like that's the most Tari Eason thing is like he had no business being in the backcourt trying to get that steal. And imagine just being Stephon Castle, you turn around and Tari's just right there in your face.
And he tried to like take it from him like he was a child, like he was a baby. He like, give me that, you know what I'm saying? And then was looking at the ref like he was crazy. Like, why would you call that foul?
And in the most Tari Eason fashion possible, right? He played 15 minutes. He racked up the stats: 6 points, 5 boards, 3 assists in his 15 minutes. Like that's just Tari Eason production. He's just out there making things happen. And like you said, the tandem duo of him and Amin out there. Amin had himself a fantastic game as well, by the way. He had 18 points. He was the second highest plus minus on the team. Fred VanVleet led the way, plus 26 in his 28 minutes out there on the floor. Amin was the next highest plus minus, plus 25 in his 20 minutes on the court. Hit another 3, might I add. Finished with 18 points, 7 of 12 shooting. He had 6 rebounds, 2 assists, had a steal, had a block. Both of those guys together are going to be a freaking nightmare for opposing teams.
And as we talk about, this segment is about, mainly rotations, and we kind of see who the 9-man rotation is going to be, and we kind of can see who are the guys that's going to be the odd men out. And it's no surprise to me that MA is going to lean in on the defenders first. They're going to get their first opportunity because defense isn't so up and down. And when you're coming off the bench and you want to make an impact, that is the most consistent thing. And so, unfortunately, it looks like Cam might be the odd man out in that 9-man rotation.
Do I run my victory lap now, or do I wait until the first regular season? Because I had people talking crazy at me saying, there's no way Cam Whitmore's not going to be in the rotation. Cam's going to get plenty of minutes. And I was like, guys, I'm so sorry to be the wet blanket on this, but Cam is not like, and again, he's going to get the fewest minutes of that 5-man bench unit.
It seems like it's going to be like we used to use Gerald Green in the Mike D'Antoni area.
Yeah, like if he's on, yes, exactly. If he's on, if he's hitting his shots in the first half, if he's knocking them down, you let it ride because he can absolutely get hot and give you an instant 20 off the bench. But if he's not, if he misses the first few shots, if he's playing a little chaotic, if he's got the turnovers, if he's, the tunnel vision Cam, whatever, then he's probably not going to get any second half minutes. That's probably how Ime is going to treat it this season.
And it's really it's up to Cam to really understand where his spots are, pick his spots intelligently, and really work on that tunnel vision, because that can really disrupt the flow, and flow is so important for a team that has so many talented players. Like, it's so important. This team is not going to be a one guy assist team. This is going to be an assist by committee team, where the guys' ball movement will allow their offense to flow, and one guy can change the makeup of that. And Cam has to understand, hey, if you don't have it going, you need to be able to make plays for other guys. And Cam is still struggling just so far with those type of things, and without his inability to actually initiate offense. Like, Jalen can initiate offense, Reed Sheppard can initiate offense. He kind of is left in no man's land without a second major skill to contribute on the floor. His defense is not as good as Amin and Tari's, and even though it's improved, that's when he's getting stuck in this no man's land, and he doesn't have initiation skills like Jalen, like Fred VanVleet, like Sengun. And so that's why I think he is going to be the odd man out, and they'll probably play it by here. If he's on a heater and Jalen is struggling, he'll probably get those minutes, or somebody else is struggling, he'll probably get those minutes in those games.
And again, it's hard to take anything away outside of, I guess, the production from some of these lineups, as opposed to just which ones did we see, because again, they're playing against the Austin Spurs. It's not great competition as far as evaluating how these lineups actually did, but it's worth noting the Rockets starting lineup, which played the most minutes of any lineup in this game, was a -5 in their 10.5 minutes that they played on the court together. So Fred, Dillon, Jalen, Alpi, and Jabari, -5, 47 total possessions. Now, you take that exact same lineup, you sub out Jabari Smith Jr., you put in Tari Eason, that lineup played 3.5 minutes together, and that lineup was a +4. across 17 total possessions. So I think that by and large, we see, right, the 9-man rotation is there. And I was actually, I won't say surprised, but I was encouraged to see that Ime is not afraid to continue playing Reed and Fred alongside each other a little bit. I think that's going to be something that we see bleed into the regular season. We were kind of curious, man, how is Reed going to get up to his about 20 minutes a night, 15, 20 minutes a night? I think that's what Ime is going to do, is he's going to have Reed out there in some minutes where he's playing alongside Jalen, playing alongside Fred, right? It's not going to be a de facto, oh, Fred's off the court, that means Reed's in the game, and that doesn't mean, because otherwise Reed would only get about, 14-ish minutes a night if that were the case.
Yeah. I agree. Reed playing off ball is definitely a skill set he has, but I would like to see Reed initiate more offense. I understand there's a lot of guys initiating, but yeah, I'd like to split some of those initiation reps with Amon. It seems like Amon's getting those backup initiation reps. At least he got them today, and we're not getting to see a lot of Reed Sheppard pick and roll, and which to me, I think we need to see more of that. And I like to see Reed be a little bit more aggressive in finding his, getting downhill and forcing the issue.
As a side note, that could be just like a game by game thing, because last game, right, Reed got a lot of the initiation reps and Amin played more off ball. That might just be an Ime thing where he's looking at it as preseason. It's like, all right, you take the on ball reps, you play off ball, now switch it. Okay, let me give Amin one more chance to like run the show a little bit more. So, and it might also be matchup dependent too. It might be a thing where, hey, okay, against this team, Ime believes Amin has the advantage, or whoever's checking him, he can't stay in front of him, whatever. Or, man, okay, this team, we really want Reed and a heavy dosage of pick and roll on the perimeter, letting him break down the defense. So, it'll be really interesting to see how Ime balances both of those two guys in particular with that second unit group to see who's actually doing most of the heavy lifting and steering. Because the other thing that we didn't see a ton of is I kind of thought, man, okay, we're going to get what we got last year where Fred runs the offense in the starters and then Jalen is going to get staggered and he's going to run the offense with the second unit. We really didn't get that, right? Jalen predominantly played like an off-ball threat regardless of what lineup he was with on the floor.
Yeah, it's interesting to see who initiates and who doesn't, but to me, it's like when Jalen gets going, they allow him to initiate.
Oh, for sure.
When he hits one or two shots, now Jalen is in the middle of the pick and roll. And I honestly think that is the Rockets' best set. Their offense right now is Jalen and Alp pick and rolls, because Jalen is so adept at finding Alp in the middle of the defense, and it really gets the defense shifting. And that's when that connective tissue ball movement really starts to pop. And I think the guys that played tonight really did a good job of that connective tissue ball movement, all the way from Dillon Brooks to Jabari Smith to Tari Eason. Tari Eason made a lot of good reads tonight. And that's the type of stuff that we like to see. And if you just remember Tari Eason 2 years ago, he was the ultimate tunnel vision guy. And now we see him making reads within the offense that are really encouraging. It's the type of growth we want to see. And that's the type of stuff that's going to keep him on the floor, because if you're passing up, those easy reads and forcing up tough shots, there's another guy waiting to get in to take those minutes.
Coming up, final segment where we're going to talk about if the Rockets have some concerning holes in their defense, or if it was maybe just some preseason laziness, as well as final thoughts from this game. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you actually place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just head on over to FanDuel.com. Take a look at so many different options. They've got their parlay builder, who's going to hit the first touchdown, division winners, or just the outright favorites to win this year's Super Bowl. Right now, the Chiefs plus 500, the 49ers plus 700, the Ravens right behind them at plus 750. Then you got the Bills at plus 850, the Lions plus 950, and your Houston Texans plus 1100 to win it all this season. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, Madison, so I'll tell you what, the first quarter in the game did not inspire a ton of confidence. I am imagining Ime was just tearing these guys apart for giving up 31 points to the G League Spurs unit. And it was, I'm talking backdoor cut after backdoor cut after off ball cut after just no like defensive awareness or attention to detail. They were flat out like just unapologetically like sleepwalking through that first quarter. Now credit to the players and the coaching staff are tightening up quite a bit in that second quarter. And again, a large part of that has to do with the effectiveness and the insertion of Amin Thompson and Tari Eason and how disruptive they were defensively, in particular during that stretch in the second quarter where they were basically pitching a shutout. So they held them to just 18 points in that second quarter. But it looked kind of bad there in that first quarter. And again, I don't know if to chalk it up to preseason laziness or just some concerning defensive tendencies.
I have a conspiracy theory.
Uh-oh. Don your tinfoil hats. Let's go.
Yeah, my conspiracy theory is MA called up Pop and he said, Pop, we're switching everything. I need you to give us a heavy dose of the back cuts, right? I need you to prepare your team for a heavy dose of the back cuts so my team can see what it feels like to get backdoored. This is how we're going to get beat, right? And he wanted to put a ton of that on camera. That's why he played our starters through the fourth quarter so he can get as much of that on scheme and clean as much of that as he needed up tonight.
Know what?
My foil hat conspiracy theory.
You know what? I will 100% co-sign that theory because I was scratching my head wondering why in the hell are Alperen Sengun and Steven Adams switching onto smaller players? Why are they basically through the first few games, through the first couple appearances, he's basically been played exclusively in drop coverage, and there were a lot of possessions in this game where both Sengun and Adams were switching out onto guards. So if that was like the mandate from Ime was, hey, we're switching 1 through 5, switch everything just to force his team to be more, to up their communication level on switches. And then if he had that little, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, under the table handshake agreement with Pop, oh my God, I don't even know if it's true or not. I want to believe it.
That's just my conspiracy theory. And I think MA really played these guys a lot because he was really trying to iron that type of stuff out for this team. He wanted to get that stuff on film. He wanted to get his defense right. He wanted to see their weaknesses. And surprisingly, in that first quarter, the guys that were getting back cut the most were the vets. It was guys like Dillon Brooks. It was guys like Fred VanVleet getting backdoored all game. You know what I mean? And those are the most aggressive defenders, point of attack guys. And those guys are the most susceptible. I think that type of stuff will get cleaned up. The communication will have to be better on those type of things. But also, I'm still a bit worried about the pick and roll man, because as Alperen Sengun is completing his assignment, we do not see the low man, the off man, rotating with enough quickness to combat the lob man. He needs to be there at all times. And time again, I see that guy late or non-existent, stringing Sengun out in no man's land, trying to recover back, showing and recover back to a guy who's, he's already beat. And that is the low man's fault. That is not Sengun's fault. And so those two issues, I think, are the biggest things. We knew since they were doing more switching this year that backdoors will be their kryptonite. Movement offenses like the Spurs offense would be their kryptonite. And also, we need to have a more attention to detail to the pick and roll and how we're going to guard that. Where's that low man? Where's that weak side man? He needs to be there so those lobs are not there. He needs to be there to be disruptive until Sengun can recover.
That low man, and when it's the starters, that low man is very much oftentimes Jabari Smith Jr., right? Because usually Dillon Brooks is guarding usually the opposing team's best perimeter player, and that player is oftentimes involved in those heavy pick and roll actions on the perimeter. So Dillon's usually in the action. Then you've got Alp who's guarding the big, and then on the weak side, it's usually one of Jabari or Jalen who's guarding one of the other weak side players. So oftentimes it's Jabari or Jalen that needs to be the low man, needs to be paying better attention to where they're supposed to rotate to in order to kind of cut that over the top threat off, or the rolling man off going towards the basket. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. One thing of note is Tari Eason did mention during training camp, right, that he looked at a lot of film, that he has a little bit of a better understanding about his positioning when it comes to where the low man is supposed to be, how to rotate, things like that. I would have to go back and like revisit this game in particular to see how Tari did with some of his rotations, but I don't think there was any moments where like Tari stood out as like a negative on the rotations, and that might be an area where if Tari is locked in and knows where he's supposed to be rotating, we know that Ime is a defense first coach. We know that Ime prides himself and his team on the defensive identity of this squad. So if other guys aren't paying attention, if they're not rotating properly, if they're blowing assignments on defense, then Tari and Amin, they are literally right there waiting in the wings to get increased minutes. And this is like, I'll throw one very small tinfoil hat theory out there. I know that for a long time, last season and all this offseason, we speculated, man, how do the Rockets get Amin Thompson more reps? What needs to happen for Amin Thompson to be a starter for this Rockets team, right? You start looking at people. You start looking at Dillon Brooks as the obvious spot, the 3 spot. You maybe even look a little bit at Jalen Green. Maybe Amin takes over that second backcourt spot. I think the dark horse spot here, though, is if Jabari's not up to snuff, like I could very easily see a role where you put Amin Thompson in there in place of Jabari. I'm not petitioning for Jabari to lose a starting spot. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying Amin provides another level of dynamic play, whereas Jabari and Dillon are a little bit, what's the word I want to look for? Not repetitive in skill set, but they're both like just spot up 3-and-D guys, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have a ton of dynamic play to their game. They don't provide that dynamic creation ability, all that stuff. So maybe, inserting a guy who could bring a little bit more of a dynamic edge to the Rockets offense might be something that they look at further down the line. Again, giving all the chances in the world to Jabari, and even in this game in particular. 11 points, 9 boards, had an assist in there. Finally knocked down a 3. That was actually a really good sign to see from him. And speaking of knocking down threes, Fred VanVleet. It was really good to see him finally connect on stuff because he had been bricking it all preseason. And I don't know if he just finally decided to take it serious or not, but Fred, 15 points. He had his 5 assists in there, 5 of 12 shooting, 3 of 9. He had one to close the half, dude. He was damn near all the way out at the logo when he drained that one.
Yeah, no, he hit a deep one, man. I thought Fred played very well. They found him within the offense, and Fred showed a little aggression, looking for his own offense throughout the game as well, while also letting the guys eat. And going back to Jabari, this was clearly Jabari's best game. I thought he has been active all 4 preseason games on the offensive boards, which I think is really good for him. That's a point of emphasis. I think he can affect the game and really come in and make an impact in that role. He's not always going to get the ball. He's often the odd man out when getting his shot, and often when the ball finds him, he seems like almost like he has to get it up. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't know when the next time he's gonna get the ball. But I thought his ball movement was good, and he was very active offensive on the offensive boards. And his length, to me, in the rebounding game, really is evident, man. It just looks like he's active. He's around the boards. He's trying to get in there and mix it up.
He had that one where he was fighting for an offensive rebound, and he finally secured it. Then he went back up, to your point about wanting to shoot. He started to elevate like he was going to pull the trigger, and then he had a hand like in his face or coming over from the backside or whatever, and then he decided to flip it out to Fred VanVleet at the last second, and then Fred just whipped it over to Jalen, and Jalen stepped into a wide open 3 with all the confidence in the world. But that 3 for Jalen doesn't happen without the hustle from Jabari. Now, it took him a split second to realize I better pass this thing back out rather than hoist up a contested midi. But it's moments like that. Those are the things that are going to help Jabari stay on the floor, and he has been. I think he's also been really active defensively, or at least trying to be active defensively. Some of the off-ball stuff probably needs a little bit of work, but when he's got his man in front of him, right, he's not a slouch defensively. He's got the length. He contests shots very well. He had a couple blocks in this game. So again, I think give Jabari some time a little bit this season. And again, he and Dillon are the ultimate role players on this team, right? They have to play their role, and if they're not playing their role, if they're struggling for whatever reason, could be shots not going in, not paying attention to detail defensively, whatever, there are literally 2 more guys coming off the bench who will gladly take their minutes if they're available, and that's Amin Thompson and Tari Eason. Last guy here I want to mention for a brief second, Steven Adams. And I only want to mention one thing. We know what Steven Adams does. The screens are incredible. The rebounding is there. He had 7 boards in 15 minutes. It's just kind of ridiculous how easily he gets the basketball when he's out there. But he was pissed, jokingly pissed, at one point during the game because there was a play where I think it was a Jalen Green shot. Somebody shot the ball, whatever. I don't know who it was. And Sheppard flew in for the offensive rebound in the paint. and went up, skied, got the rebound, kicked it back out. And then immediately afterwards, Fred got fouled on an attempt or whatever. Fred's walking to the free throw line, and you hear the basket mic. And I cannot repeat what Steven Adams said on this podcast, but he said something, Effort's taking my rebounds or whatever, talking about Reed Sheppard. It was the funniest damn thing. Like the clip exists on Twitter, is doing numbers. Go take a look. Steven Adams is a national treasure. He is so funny. He is, the vibes are immaculate with Steven Adams. That's all I had to say about Big Steve.
Man, I missed that clip. I got to go find it on Twitter. That's actually hilarious. But also, I'll give some more credit because we finally got to see some really nice Steven Adams passes tonight. Some really, good backdoor bounce passes. I was like, yeah, that's the part of Steven Adams' game that also we hadn't got a real good glimpse of, and I'm hoping we can see more of that from him throughout the season. That's
actually a fantastic call out. Absolutely. When we had Funaki Stats on here, a while back, the Steven Adams super fan from New Zealand, he highlighted, right, one of the most underrated parts of Adams' game is that passing ability. So using him as an offensive hub, right, using him as a guy that other guys can cut and play around offensively. He can hit those little pocket passes, those little backdoor cut passes, and hopefully generate some easy offense for his teammates. So it's not just the screening, it's not just the rebounding. The passing is also an important element of his game in particular. We want to know your favorite moment from this Rockets game. We want to know what your big sweeping takeaways are. How are you feeling after 4 Rockets preseason games? Let us know in the YouTube comments. Madison, you know the drill. Let me know where they can track you down at.
You can find me on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. Come talk Rockets basketball and NBA draft.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. The best way you can help our show out is to listen every single day on your preferred podcast platform. Like and subscribe on YouTube and drop a comment while you're there. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.